Hello, welcome to Zatu Games. Today I will be taking a look at Whistle Mountain, a game about whistles and mountains and scaffolding and airships and floods. And let's go take a look. So this is a brief overview of a two-player game. We have the setup with the red and black players with two meeples down in the whirlpool, which will lose points at the end of the game. 5 points for each meeple there, and then 2 on each level of the barracks. We have the barracks, oh my goodness, which I've just destroyed. The scaffolding and building area, and then the tower, which is safe from any water-based disasters. The game will end when the barracks is completely empty of meeples, whether through rising water or through player actions. Each player will have a player board which contains all they need to know about how to run their goes on, place to store their resources. Now, you can only store 4 of each past the end of the turn, and various things like your upgrades will just slot in there, your starting power, and your 3 airships at the side there, as you can see. Starting powers are varied. This is just a selection of about 20 odd, and they just give you a unique thing that you can do. When you build a machine, you get to run the machine. When you move a player, you get to move a meeple, you get to grab a card, and so on and so forth. A number of these will be put out, and you'll choose them in reverse order. Other than that, each player will choose 2 scaffolding pieces, place 1 out on the board, and keep 1 in their reserve. During the game, you are trying to collect resources to build scaffolding and machines higher and higher to get the best chance of getting points. You do get points through a number of ways, but one of the most efficient ways is to get people onto this tower, because each level of the tower will score that amount of points for each meeple there. So if I get 2 meeples in here, I will get 2 times 5, which is 10, but the top one scores 10. So you have a choice when you're building to build high or build wide. Once you get over this line though, build a machine over this line, the water will come up and will send any meeples down to the whirlpool and stop any machines working that it covers. To do that, you're going to need to get resources. To get resources, you're going to place one of your airships, and whatever your airship is next to orthogonally, you will get. So in this case, this player would get 1 water and 1 coal. Here, they would get 1 gold and 1 water. Here, they would get 3 waters. So don't forget the baseline for getting those. You can only place outside of scaffolding with your airships, not on the scaffolding. So you need to be kind of clever about how you position the scaffolding. The other place you can place your airship is in these notches around the side of the board. These ones down the left hand side get you access to machines which you pay for. The top notch gets you access to cards. Up here you get upgrades which have their own cost on, and you can only get 6 of these in the game, but they are worth points and they just fit in nicely to your player board if you do it right there, alongside the starting power, which fits in nicely there. You can have 6 of those, and then you can get scaffolding. And down here, the one we always forget about on its own is you can rescue a person from the whirlpool back up onto the scaffolding. Whenever you place a person onto the scaffolding, they must go in an empty space unless you have a power that dictates otherwise. So you're going to be spending your games placing out your balloons. Eventually you will have no balloons left. Then you will take the forge action. The forge action returns all your balloons to you, lets you build up to 3 times, and lets you make 1 movement. A movement costs gold and can either be rescuing someone from the whirlpool for 2 gold or moving someone for 1 gold, either from the barracks onto the scaffolding or from one scaffolding place to a higher scaffolding place. Well, I assume higher. You're going to want to go higher. Building, you can build scaffolding. Now, you get a point for every side that it touches other scaffolding, but you can do ridiculous things like that wouldn't balance in real life if you just want to go higher. When you're building, you're looking to create areas where you can place your machines. Machines have to have full scaffolding underneath them, so I could place that one there, or I could place a medium machine there. But if I wanted to place a large machine, I'd have to create an area of 3x3, which would then fit a machine on. Any meeples a machine covers will follow the line straight down to the tower. So if I built that 3x3 machine in this area, then this meeple would go all the way along into this zone, and this one would go into the same zone, and the player whose turn it is would get the reward rosette. And that can be used, saved for a point at the end, or used on one of your turns for its action. Now, when you use rosettes, you can only use one per turn, and the same with cards. Machines score points for you when they are placed, and also can then be landed on by balloons. So in the example earlier, if I were to land on this here, this way, I'm touching water, gold and a whistle, so I get all those three, but I also activate the machine and get a coal and a iron or steel. Now, if there were machines next to me as well, I would activate those machines as long as I were touching them. So, say this machine was here like so, I would also be able to activate that machine. So anything your balloon touches orthogonally will activate, essentially. The machines don't belong to anyone, but the person who plays them gets the points for playing them. They also get points for the scaffolding, and you will get points at the end for your upgrades, and also resources will give you leftover resources, machines that you haven't built, scaffolding that you haven't built, cards that you haven't used will all give you a small amount of points as well. That is a very quick overview of Whistle Mountain. Whistle Mountain is a game with a lot going on. It's hard to define it. There is definitely placement of what you might call workers, although these airships are different sizes and therefore have different strengths. I will say that a lot of the time there wasn't kind of a bad thing. There was very few where I absolutely wanted to place one size of ship. But certainly which one you leave till last can sometimes be really important at getting you that extra resource. I think the way that you place things out, either around the side or into the middle, where you're jointly building this scaffolding of machines and workers, is great, is brilliant, and it's really simple. The complexity comes from all the different things you can do. Your turn is broken down really well by the player board. It tells you what you can do. It gives you pictures to show you that you can either, I've got to try and remember what they're called now, the one where you retrieve your balloons and then you can work, you can move and you can build. And building is really good. It's the main thing that you need water for. And all the resources kind of have something like that. But there is these generous upgrades that let you turn resources into wilds and all sorts. There is certainly a lot going on. And throughout the games I've played, they probably have run into at least a couple of hours, but mainly this has been on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, so they are going to add some time on. I can see it being one where some people take really quick goes and some people will take longer goes as they try and work out what they want to do. But generally, because things don't change, even in a larger game, you kind of know what's going to change and what's going to stay the same. You can kind of work it out. You can look at people's resources. You can work out that they might be going for that big machine because they've been building up the resources over the last couple of turns, and you can work out whether you can nip in before them or not. So generally, on your downtime, you are using that in a productive way to kind of think about what you do next. At 4-player, it is harder, but it's still possible because each person places one thing and then takes that action, so they're not going to be able to do everything. And if they take that machine, they're going to be leaving that tasty spot on the building, the dam, where you can activate a number of machines. It's a game that feels really generous in the rules, in that you do get resources. Resources aren't incredibly hard to come by. Some of them are. Sometimes you have to really focus on getting some, but there's ways of doing it. At first, in my first game, I kind of ignored the cards. I don't ignore cards anymore. That's always a good spot to go to. Even if the only spot I want to go to is the rescue a person from the bottom of the waterfall, that's still 5 points you're saving, or, kind of saving yourself doing another action that costs gold. So I think it holds together really, really well. I have played this a number of times now in real life and on internet, and it has been so varied. The combination of different starting powers that you draft at the start, with the different upgrades that you can get, the fact that you can only lock in 6, you can't just discard and build the same thing each time, and then the machines that go out, and the way that the scaffolding and the dam is built is just... it comes across so differently. You might think, oh, we'll always build it the same, but in some games you've got someone who's determined to rush the end game, so they just build higher and higher and higher, trying to get up to those higher scoring places, but also that means that the flood's going to come sooner and cause the end of the game. Then you have some games where everyone wants to just put out as many machines as possible, so they build wide, and you don't get the flood damage till a lot later in the game. Placing your meeples, or I think they're called workers, can't quite remember, whatever they are, placing those little wooden people onto the scaffolding is always a good choice too. Do you put it higher to guarantee yourself some points later on, or do you instead go next to someone else so that when they build a machine, they send your person there as well? There is so many clever choices in here. I absolutely love Whistle Mountain. It is one of the games for me I think it came out in 2020, I'll have to check that, but it is one of the games of 2020 for me. Who is it for? Well, I would definitely say, while it's not heavy in the mechanics, in the turn, in taking your turn, it is not hard to understand. You either place out or you take away and build and move a worker. The amount of options that are open to you and their consequences, just mute my computer, are wide-ranging. And although you don't get punished, you're getting points for doing everything, so there is a bit of point salad. You don't get punished for not having a perfect plan. And you can kind of learn the game as you go. There is a lot to take in. So you do need to be aware of kind of quite a few different things. However, it is one that if you have been gaming for a little bit, if you've played some worker placement games with lots of options, then there's nothing too overbearing in terms of the complexity. But it's just that there's a lot. If you like clever worker placement games with engines that you can build both for yourself and for everyone in this kind of joint space of kind of maximizing efficiency, but not getting punished too much if you don't have an absolutely efficient turn, then I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. There are lots of ways to score points. The tower does remain the best one, but everyone needs to move the people across anyway, and all the other bonus ways of scoring points are really viable as well. I think there's a lot to love here. If you're just starting out with games, then I think although the rulebook is good and there are simple turns, then it might be one that just takes you a bit longer to get going with. I wouldn't say don't buy it like I might with something like Underwater Cities or Prague. I might say work your way up to it. I think you'll be able to manage it, but it just might take that little bit longer if you're not familiar with some of the kind of general mechanics and the way things work in this game. But I think if you do buy it and you do persevere with it, the rulebook is really good. All the machines, everything is at the back in a reference. I think that you would find this quite rewarding as well. It would just be the play length that you might want to keep an eye on. So that's my thoughts on Whistle Mountain. For me, this is an absolutely cracking game that I would always be willing to play. So thank you for watching another Zatu Games video. Do remember to hit like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. We also have accounts on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and that might be it. It might not. Facebook. Did I say Facebook? Probably. Search for Zatu Games or Zatu Games UK to find all those lovely, lovely accounts. And remember, we have a live show on Facebook on Wednesdays from 8 p.m. And we are live on Twitch on Monday lunchtimes at 12 and Fridays from 9 p.m. playing a mixture of video games and board games. We'd love to see you there. But for now, thanks very much for watching and we'll see you next time.